I kind of have to start my talk by thanking Atala, really, because I live upstairs in the men's community. Like my room's right around like where like Matt and Sanjay are sitting. So in a way, he has had, really, actually, literally, direct impact on my life. But yeah, a little about me. I'm from the Philippines. Came to London to study in university and ended up here, I guess. So yeah, 18 months ago, I guess what drew me to the LBC, I guess, was I had a deep sense that maybe I was getting life wrong, really. Like, and how do I say this? Like, not in a very dramatic way, but in a very average way. And I guess it's one of those things you try, you get, you go to a Buddhist center, I guess, and try to meditate. But, I was angry and, I don't think I was making the connections I was supposed to. I don't think I was getting what I wanted from life. I just thought I was just getting it wrong, really. And I was looking around and, you try, I guess like a young person, you try loads of things, you read up and try to make sense of what the world is. And for a long time, I guess, when I was looking around, no one really knew what they were doing either. So I guess the LBC was one of those things I was trying, and that wanting more out of life, and I think in a way, I was in environments where I wasn't given almost permission to want that, and that kind of brings a certain tension. I think a lot of young people have that right now, where there's a certain de facto cynicism. Everything's sort of, I don't know if, I think a lot of young people can relate to this. A lot of things are ironic, and because wanting more from life seems silly. It seems like that's not something you express. And I remember the first month I started coming to the LBC, really. What really struck me at first was how interesting the people were. And everyone seemed to think about things very deeply and almost like they took their lives seriously. I feel like what the LBC means to me is, on a base level, I'm almost given permission to do that, to take my life seriously and, want more. I think the deeper I went, I was particularly struck by how vivid the Buddhist teachings really are here. It's very alive, and not just like the literal teachings and when we go to Dharma night, but in the culture, really, and how we pour tea, and there's a really strong culture of generosity and kindness, but also what kind of struck me was also there was a real undercurrent of like intelligence, I guess. That's not quite the right word, but I always thought those things were separate. Like kindness, I associated with naivety and your head in the clouds. And intelligence, you kind of eventually had to be mean or something. But I was quite struck by how I found very intelligent people and very kind people, and they were the same thing. In the LBC, I was like, I think that's when I started to feel really that people in the LBC are kind of getting life right, like the first month I was like, Dharma kind of resonating with me, and it's like having to ask myself hard questions like, am I a Buddhist? What would happen if I become a Buddhist? Because in one way, I was worried really that, I was worried that I'd become a hippie and stop using soap. Go ahead. But what I was really worried about was that that it becoming a Buddhist wouldn't change my life. That if I meditated and lived by Buddhist teachings, I could still step outside the center and be kind of a garbage person. um, and it really, like, I was afraid to answer that question for myself. Like, what would I look like if I wasn't a garbage person? I wasn't that bad. Come on. But I saw. But what really the LBC and its culture represents to me is, I saw the other end of that. Like, what's underneath if I stopped becoming a garbage person, started what does a real Buddhist look like? And I saw, like, a lot of kindness and a lot of generosity and a lot of people cultivating a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of poetry, people really having really deep friendships, and I was like, I want that. Because I actually remember my first retreat, and Akasha Jyoti led that. And I actually don't remember what the theme was or what the actual teachings were, but I do remember like the way the people were. And I was like, I think that's what really was like, because I was afraid like Buddhism was just going to be something I take up and it's going to be this exotic, cute thing from the East that brown people do, and I guess white people do it too. And then when I came here, I was like, oh, it's this real thing. It's very alive in LBC. 3 weeks ago, this talk was slightly different. Obviously, Bhante died, and the LBC, like, in that small period of time, I've really felt like a slight but big shift. Like there's something different in the air. And what I can kind of relate to is this. Well, my mom told me, like, when my dad was 17, his mother died, and he was the eldest sibling, and he had to step up and kind of grow up. And on a micro scale, I feel that from the LBC, like, everyone, like, the hierarchies kind of shifted, and everyone has had to do a little bit of growing up. I remember during the time, like the immediate time after Bante's death, like the immediate Sangha, like the organization of it all was actually quite smooth. Everyone kind of pulled together really reliably. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we have 21 mitras, a record-breaking number apparently. I've kind of been into feeling that shift. And on a macro scale, I've also kind of felt like the LBC is kind of one of the eldest siblings in the Charatna movement, really. And I've kind of felt like, Subhuti was saying the other night that that's what he wants the LBC to become in the future, to exemplify the best of Charatna. And, 40 years old seems like old. If the LBC was a person, it'd start having dietary restrictions. But really, like, in relation to Buddhist movements, and like 40 years is actually quite young, but with Bante's death, like, it seems like we kind of have to step up a bit and grow up a little bit faster. And I don't think I'm exaggerating really when I'm imagining like that the people in this room are going to be people who shape what the next 40 years is going to feel and look like. I can imagine the next 40 years there might not be a Sanjay, Joseph, Danny, and Polly. We might have different names, Some of you might have different names. So, I guess, if given that we grow up, we might have another good 40 years. Thank you.